frontier is defined as uncharted territory by land or ocean. Those who chart that territory tell a story. The past illustrates the blueprint for the present, how things are and how they've evolved. From land to water, we are challenged to border that new frontier, a frontier the outdoorsman knows like no other. Author Gary Lewis works his way along that edge of where discoveries, failures, and achievements have written the story of the sportsman.
Yes! Yes!
From state to state, continent to continent, the stories told create the foundation of the present, and they lay the framework for the future. Through the muzzle fire and on the stone are stories from the edge.
Water is the most important thing as far as Indians are concerned, 'cause that's life.
The past is written, the present is here, and this is Frontier Unlimited. Citrus growers in Florida are willing to live with the alligators. In fact, they cannot help it. As the water fills the reservoirs and the hurricanes fill the groves and the alleys between the trees with rain, alligators move where they want.
Whoever might be the first shooter, we'll have you kind of standing up. We'll shoot the 308 to start with. And when I say first shooter on if the gator's not on the bait.
Over toward the west coast of Florida, Lewis and crew were based in a little town called
Everybody ready in the back?
Immokalee.
You know, the big thing with gators is they don't necessarily eat underwater, so to speak. I mean, they will catch fish, that kind of thing.
I remember you telling me that they like to eat on the surface.
They like to eat on the surface, yep. That's why you either see baits hanging or float. You know, we float a lot of baits in Florida. You know, we have some methodologies to limit the fish picking at the bait and, you know, also the turtles picking at the bait. But
can you select for size by the size of your bait or anything like that?
Well, in anything I like to do, fishing, hunting, you know, I truly believe bigger bait, bigger animal.
Okay.
But with that said, what's interesting is, and what we've learned over the years, is that really your best, you know, there's some certain areas gators are going to stay, but your best way to catch a big gator is, you know, see where he's been coming, and then you set a couple baits on each side of him or something like that. This is a working grove. You know, throughout the day you'll see people running around doing grove stuff, spraying, you know, whatever they need to do on their grove. You know, the general idea is that we've put them on an alligator management plan where we're going to manage the alligator population from an aspect of, you know, because of the grove, because of the amount of rainfall that Florida gets, water is a constant issue. You're constantly moving water back and forth. And, you know, so they have these big waterways, they have these big pumps. To the grove guy, gator getting in a pump could cost him $10,000 or $15,000.
Yeah.
So they like to see the alligators gone. To us, they obviously have a value.
Yeah.
And to many people, they have a value. So, you know, we come in, we put them on a plan and say, hey, we're going to harvest alligators, and we're going to, you know, maybe do some hunts, and we're going to we'd like to collect eggs, you know, and we really kind of see what they are looking for. Some people think that, you know, coming in and killing a bunch of gators is bad for the alligator population. You know, you can actually come in, harvest some of the bigger alligators, the big bull gators, and your alligator population will actually go up.
Right.
Because they're not eating the littler gators. You know, the 10, 11, 12-foot alligators, when they breed, they're much rougher on the females, on the sows. This particular grove, their goal is to minimize alligators, to minimize damage to their equipment.
What kind of damage happens to their equipment?
Like I said, mainly it's all about the pump stations. So you have these big pumps that move the water into the reservoir, out of the canal. We'll see one up here. Gator gets into that pump and it can throw belts, it can mess up the turbine, it can, they're down, it can cause damage to the grove ultimately. I mean, there's a variety of ways.
Grayson Padrick, the 41-year-old owner of Central Florida Trophy Hunts, a former NASA engineer,
Yeah, go ahead. Let's go ahead and pull it.
was at the
Here, I'll
wheel
get you the tape.
while his 17-year-old son Ethan stood on the back of the truck
Yeah, I took the bucket out. So it's still sinking?
with Matthew McFarland and his kids, Chisel, Finney, Katie, and Molly.
Generally speaking, as far as, what we try to set baits on gators. In other words, you see an alligator, you set a bait. But then we have some general areas, or good areas. Anytime you have these canals over here that have a ditch coming out, generally we see a lot of alligator traffic. The gators use those culverts as a safe place for them to be at. It just ultimately, they know they can get in that culvert, they can stay safe, all that kind of stuff. So those are good areas to set baits at. But a lot of times we find that the blind setting of baits doesn't work as well. We like to see a 50% success rate. On a really, really good bait set, we've gone, every single bait, but those are few and far between. One of the big things that we do now is alligator eggs. We started getting into that a couple, 4 or 5 years ago. And now we just signed a 3-year contract. All of our eggs are going to one particular farmer. Gator on the corner, guys. I got to get past the guy. A gator should be on a bait.
Small ones slide through the gaps in the field fences. Big ones go into deep holes and stake out territory in the best fishing turf.
I know, I want to see where the bait is.
Some end up in the pumps and the culverts, and where the big ones prowl, nothing is safe. This was not their first gator hunt. In the McFarland family, when one of the kids turns 8, he or she goes after their first gator.
Hey, E, bring the truck up here. How the methodology of the whole baits work is bait set. We're going to ease him up here as soon as he breaks the surface. Then we're going to shoot him from there. So we'll grab the 22 Hornet. Molly, you're going to be up on this one.
We got one on the bait, and so Molly is going to take the 22 Hornet and do the work on this one.
You're going to stand right beside me, Molly, and as we pull the gator up, you'll stand right beside me. I'll tell you when to shoot. Now, as far as where to shoot, this is the important part. So what we're going to do is we're going to shoot, actually the gator's up, we might just shoot him right there. But what we're going to do is, do you see the back of his head? Okay, you're going to come right behind the back of his head and shoot him right there. Right here. All right, you ready? I'm going to start easing him up. He's going to come close. Ready as you're going to be? You're ready. Okay. All right, see the bubbles? That's him, so he's coming up.
There's only one place to put the bullet,
Coming up.
in the
Green
golf
stuff right here.
ball-sized brain.
Just shoot him underwater?
Nope, you're gonna wait till he comes all the way up and you're gonna shoot him right now. You're gonna probably shoot him in the eyeball. All right, let her eat. Nope, hold on.
Dependent on the angle, the crosshair goes on the ear, a flap of skin behind the eye, or between the thin hooded orbs.
Yep, come to the, right behind this, right in his head, right behind his head. There he is. Oh, but go ahead and gaff him right under the lip, as close as possible. Close enough. Slowly, slowly. That way, in case he's got any nerves left, or, we also bleed him, it makes the meat better as well.
I couldn't really see the gator, but I knew where it was. There were a bunch of trees in the way, so it was hard to get him. Yeah.
Every alligator that gets harvested in the U.S., whether it's farm gator, whether it's wild gator, whether it's nuisance gator, whether it's the public state gator, and anywhere across the U.S., they all basically get a CITES tag at some point. Our philosophy and basically the rule states that when it's first conveniently available on your private land, you should tag him. So in this particular case, this would be, we've harvested the animal, we pull him up here, before we even load him in the truck, we're gonna put a tag in. You know, if you were in a boat, when you had him safely secured in the boat, you would put a tag in him. Basically, as soon as possible to safely put a tag in him, they want you tagging him to make sure everything you're doing is legal. So. Hopefully everybody's going to get to harvest lots of gators today, but so far your tag's 199. So we'll run a tape on him and before we put him in the cooler. Try to do everything we can to make sure we preserve the alligator. Skin, meat. The gator skin is excessively sensitive to sunlight. An hour in the sun and they'll start slipping. The scales will actually start coming off. So as soon as we harvest the alligator, we put him in the truck, get him covered up. When we're done harvesting, you know, we're done with this little reservoir, we'll take them all back to the walk-in cooler. We actually bring a cooler trailer down here. We'll load them right in the trailer.
As a resource, alligators are an efficient source of meat, sold in grocery stores and restaurants, and raw materials for belts, boots, wallets, upholstery, purses, and other good things.
I've been hunting my entire life, started hunting with my dad, all that kind of good stuff. But decided I was going to be a mechanical engineer, went to school for that, started co-oping and at the shuttle program, worked on shuttle for almost 14 years. And then I left shuttle after the shuttle program ended and went to Lockheed Martin as a design engineer. And I did that for about 14 months. And you know, the business was getting to the point where we were so busy that, you know, I was starting to have less and less time. We had been, you know, doing the business now for almost 20 years.
Okay.
And you know, that started off when I was working shuttle, really just as it's a way to subsidize the income so my wife could stay home with her kids. And you know, we started doing a few hunts, and we started doing a few more hunts, and then we got into manufacturing gator hunting equipment, harpoons, bang sticks. That kind of took off. When the economy crashed in 2008, a lot of other processors went out of business. And you know, we said, hey, I think we can do this as well or better than some of the other guys. And so we jumped in the processing business, and that's really taken off. You know, we do, just during the public season now, we do probably close to 1,300 alligators a year.
Oh man.
And in that 11-week season, probably the largest in the state for the public waters.
Yeah.
We have 7 locations around the state that you can drop a gator off.
Oh.
We've kind of followed the vertical integration of many of the farms now, and ultimately the leather goods guys have gone. You know, I mean, your big farms now are not owned by little farmers anymore. Now you've got, you know, Louis Vuitton, who owns a farm and a tannery, and you know, they're going to get eggs and all of that. You've got Gucci who's doing that. You've got Hermes who's doing that. I mean, that's who the end user now owns the farm and everything else. Most of the time, I'm one of the few small guys still left. There's still a handful of us. It's there's only a handful of us.
The market of wild alligator skins has declined because of factory farmers have figured out how to turn little alligators into big alligators, and big alligators that grow up in concrete raceways where they don't have to fight for turf or breeding, don't acquire the scars and the character of wild gators.
Sure, you bet. We don't want them to bite anybody. That can still happen.
Yep, it's got a lot of nerves after they get harvested, so they'll move around some, so we want to tape them and make sure they don't go anywhere.
$50.70. We need to get a little closer. Are you, everybody ready?
We're hunting and fishing. So we got a big gator spotted up here. We're gonna try to get a shot at it. We're gonna stalk it down here, keeping this dike between us. Just about to it now. Okay, right.
In this particular orange grove, the owner wants to live in harmony with the gators. Instead of a campaign to eradicate, the owner seeks to manage the population, conserve the resource, and keep a sustainable number of big lizards. In these circumstances, an alligator can earn its keep.
So I think we have 1 or 2 baits left. One was set on a pretty good gator though. I mean, literally the gator went down and we threw the bait where the gator stopped bubbling at. So I'll be very disappointed if there's not a gator on there. Have a shooter up and ready?
Different places react well to riding in the truck and stalking them or looking in the canals. And different areas react well to baiting. And it just depends on the type of area, what the gators have for food, and what time of day it is.
When the shadows in the grove were longer than the orange trees, when thunder boomers built over the Everglades, they stalked a 12-footer in the deep canal. It had been spotted earlier in the day, and it was too cagey to get a bait. This one would take a different approach. One of the tricks is using gator language. Grayson cranked up the gator tunes, and 60 seconds later, the gator elevated to get a look around.
I forgot to turn the safety off.
For a brief moment, there was a shot at that golf ball brain, and then it was gone.
Hold on. Keep it tight. You're good. He's right here. He stopped. Pull you off.
With a stout saltwater rod and a Dacron line, the hunter casts a weighted treble and drags it on the bottom again and again. It takes a finely tuned sixth sense to know where to cast and when to strike. But if anyone has it, it's Patrick.
Man, hunting and fishing. This combines them just like bow fishing does.
He's moving, for sure. Yeah. Had to run down the bank with him, so didn't put too much pressure on him and pull the hook, which eventually happened when he turned, but it happens.
There he is. Hey, go! Go! Left. Going left.
To the trained eye, they leave clues though. Swirls of mud and otherwise clear water are a giveaway, and bubble trails can show the gator hunter where to throw a hook.
Somebody close with a gun?
Man, this is just a game of cat and mouse. But the thing that's so cool is these guys, after years and years of hunting these things, they've got a sixth sense about what they're going to do next, where they're going to go. That's the fun thing, is watching Grayson and watching Ethan.
He's elusive.
We've got a little urgency now. We are cruising these dike roads, just watching the water and looking for those eyeballs, looking for those nostrils poking up out of the water, that gator at rest profile.
They prowled with the truck looking for nostrils in the canal. 4 eyeballs against the bank. And Chisel saw it was behind us, a snout visible, black against the glare on the water. He held for an ear, took in a half a breath, and held it a while they all held theirs. The crack of the rifle and the spray of the water, the gator did a slow roll and sank.
Okay, we're trying to triangulate on where we got a dead alligator.
Okay, I'm sticking my rod up. You see it? Rod's in there even.
It wasn't too hard of a shot. I was just thinking, wow, it's pretty small, and
Farther what?
and I needed to make sure I got an alligator after, since I didn't shoot the one before. So I was just thinking, well, I'm just gonna shoot him. And so I did. I just took my time. He just sat there, and I just pulled still.
Even though they all saw it go down, it took 40 minutes for Grayson to hook it with the rod and drag it up, a hard-won trophy in the last light of the day.